Good morning, YouTubers. It's Katrina from the Alluring Bead Boutique. Finally getting back to work for you guys a little bit this week. First, I want to show you this adorable little pair of earrings. They're just really easy to make. The class is on Skillshare, and I will throw a link in for you guys. I named them the little prickly pear earrings because these little fire polish here with the accent bead at the end just reminded me of prickly pears. Really cute, really inexpensive, very, very easy. That class is on Skillshare. I also have the photos for a pattern that I have not worked up yet, but I will try to get that done soon, and it'll be at the Bead Mat website, and I'll put a link for that also as soon as I get the pattern done. I also have a pattern available for a turquoise trails bracelet that I made over the summer, and I will just pause right here and show you a quick picture of it because I do not have it on hand. It is currently up at the art gallery for sale. So here's what the photo looks like. And the pattern for that is also available on the Bead Mat website. But for today, we're going to do a quick and easy little earring project, and I just think that it came out really adorable. It combines a couple of techniques, which are basically just ladder stitch and herringbone stitch, and it utilizes the stitching in such a way as that it creates this gorgeous little earring here. I just love the way that it came out. I just think it's really sleek. It reminds me of the Chinese fans. And it's very simple to make, requires very few beads, as you can tell. But what you'll need in order to make this project are these little tiny Toho cubes, which are the 1.5 millimeter size. And the color I'm using here is Raspberry Gold Luster. And you're also going to need a few bugle beads. And I am using these gorgeous, like, antique gold looking bugles here. Let's take a quick look at the size of these. And they are 5 millimeters in length. So you can use any color that you want. I do happen to have quite a bit of these beads, so if you're interested in this particular color and you have trouble finding it, you can message me on Facebook or on the website, and we can talk about maybe putting together a kit for you if you're interested. All right, so I'm not going to actually go into this first part of the earring project because I've done it so many times here on YouTube, and all I have done is simply created a 16 bead long strip of ladder stitch with the bugle beads, and then I have come back and reinforced all the way back to where my tail thread is, which is right here. I'm going to throw a link up right now, so if you need help with ladder stitch, you can refer to this particular video, and you can see how to get your strip going and how to reinforce. It's also the same technique I used in the graphite bracelet tutorial here on YouTube as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get my beads out, and we're going to take it and get started. So for this project, I'm using a size 10 beading needle, and I'm using some .008 Wildfire because I don't really have to go through the beads too many times except for the bugles, and they accommodate this thicker thread pretty well. But we're going to do, the next stitch we're going to do is just simple herringbone, and we're going to do a partially up our strip. Then we're going to add these 3 horizontal bugle beads in between, and then the rest herringbone there. So in order to do the herringbone, we're going to be using our little cube beads, and as always, we pick up 2. We're coming out of this end bead, so we'll just pick up our 2 and go down through the very next bugle bead. Pull it down into position and step up through the next bugle. I'll try to keep my tail thread out of my way here. And then we'll just repeat that 2 more times. coming out of the third bead, so we'll go down the fourth bead, picking up our 2 cubes. And you'll notice that they sit a little weird in there, so you might have to wiggle them around so that they actually butt up against each other. So just take your time. Then come up your 5th bead. I wish I would have tied a knot so I could get rid of my tail thread, but I haven't done that at this point. So I'll just keep pressing on. And now for the 3rd stitch, we're coming out of the 5th bead. At the top, we'll go down through the 6th bead. And pull our little beads into position and make sure I'm coming out of the right bead here. I got some new bulbs for my desk lamps, the daylight bulbs, and they're very bright. So now we've done our 3 stitches of herringbone. We're going to step up into that 7th bugle bead right here. And I'm going to flip my work over because my tail thread's really getting on my nerves. So I'm just going to put it in my, flip it over and work this way. So now we're going to pick up a bugle bead. We are coming out of the 7th bead. We want to go down through the 10th bead. So we're 7, 8, 9, 10. Count over to the 10th bead. And we're going to come down through that bead. So that when we pull our bugle bead, it's going to sit horizontally across the top of our ladder stitch beads. We're going to come back up through that 11th bead. And then we're just going to do 3 more rows, or 3 more sets of our herringbone. So we'll pick up the 2 cubes, come down through the next bead. I'm going to make sure I didn't skip anything there. It kind of almost looks like I did, but I don't think so. Go down through the 12th bead, up through the 13th bead. These lights are so bright, they're giving me just a little bit of trouble, but I will keep pressing on. Pick up 2, come down through the next bead. Situate the cubes. We're going to come up through the 15th bead and add our last 2 cubes. And this is a little tight, so let me see if I can get it through there. For some reason, I must have had an awful lot of thread in that bead. Anyhow, so here's what my work looks like. I've completed this stitch here. But now I need to step up, so I'm coming out of the bottom of my 16th bead here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and go back up through the 15th bugle bead only. And pull that up. Pull my thread all the way back up. Make sure my cubes look like they should. Then I'm going to step over into this last cube bead on the far end here. We're going to do our step up that way. So now we're stepped up and we're ready to continue. So now this next row is going to be identical to the one we just did. We're going to do 3 sets of herringbone. So pick up 2. You're coming out the top of this cube on the end. Go down through just the cube next to it. Situate your beads on top. Come up through the next cube over. When you're working, make sure that your working thread does not get hung at the bottom of your bugle beads. Pick up 2. We're coming out of that 3rd cube at the top, so we'll go down through the 4th cube here. And then up through the 5th cube to step up. And we're going to take this third set here, so pick up 2. Come down through the 6th bugle bead, or 6 cube bead, I'm sorry. Just like that. So now we're coming out of the bottom of that 6th cube. We are going to take our needle and come over through our horizontal bugle bead. And since I'm stitching to the right, I'll go through that bead left to right. Now we need to add another bugle bead here. So we're going to go ahead and pick this bead up, and I'm going to let it drop all the way down to my beadwork. So I'm going to can manipulate it with my hand a little bit better and make it sit where I want to. I want it to sit on top of this bead, so I'm going to come back through the bead below it, left to right, one more time. Just like that. So now that bead is sitting where it should, but I need to add a little bit of structure to that particular bead, so I'm going to come back through the top bead right to left once and go back through the bottom bead left to right one more time. And that's just going to make sure that that bead holds firmly in place. So now we've got the 2 beads there. Now we're going to step up through this 7th cube from bottom to top. And we're going to continue and do our last 3 sets of herringbone here. So we'll pick up 2, come down through the next cube. Step up through the very next cube. Pick up 2, come down the next cube. Step up into the second to the last one here. And take our last herringbone stitch. Pick up 2. And we're good. This time when we come down, we're going to go down through the cube on the end plus the bugle bead here on the end. And pull. And the reason I stepped all the way down is because when I have to do my turnaround here, I'm going to add just a little extra, stability to the piece by passing up through the second to the last bugle bead to do my step up. Keeping my tail thread out of the way. And now I need to step up through these 2 cubes here on the outside edge. So I'll come up through both of those cubes right there. And there we go. So now we have that much of our work done. All right. So the next thing we need to do is we need to get our bugle beads added here at the top so that our little herringbone section of cube beads becomes the middle of the earring like this. And we have one more of our horizontal bugle beads to add here in the center. At that, my battery kind of just went blank on me there for a minute. So let's get back to where we were. We are going to be adding the last 16 of our bugle beads the top of the earring. Come out just a little. So I've went ahead and I've picked up my 2 bugle beads and I've let them kind of drop down here onto the beadwork. We're coming out of this top cube here on the left hand side. We're going to take our needle and come down the top cube right next to it, just like that. And we're going to pull. And I'm going to pull kind of slow because I'm going to show you a little trick about getting these bugles to do what you want. I'm going to go ahead and bring this top bugle bead to this side. So it's sitting there in a little V. Then I'm going to go ahead and pull my thread like that. And that's just an easy way to get your herringbone stitch to work out with bugles without pulling on the sharp edges of these bugle beads against your thread. Then we're going to step up into the top cube on the next set. And we're going to repeat that. We'll pick up our 2 bugles. And we'll go ahead and bring those on down. And we're going to come down through the top cube on this set, next door, just like that. I'll start pulling. I'm going to drag that bugle bead over here to the side. Now, if I was working on a really long project, I might not take the time to position that bugle, but since this is just a really short strip, it's not that much of a trouble to do so. And we'll do it one more time. Picking up 2. And let those come on down. Coming down through the top cube next to the right there. And bring that one little bugle bead over. Just like that. So now I need to step over through the top bugle bead of my little set of horizontal beads there. Pull my thread through. And now I'm going to add my 3rd little horizontal bugle bead here. So I'm going to pick this one up. And I'm going to let it drop down too. Just like that. And I'm going to come back through that top horizontal bugle bead one more time. I'm working towards the right, so I'll go left to right through that bead. Pull my little 3rd horizontal bead into position. And then I'm going to come back through it one more time. Just adding a 2nd thread through those 2 horizontal beads. Pull that through that way. So now I need to come back through the one in the middle, which is now in the middle, left to right. You know, I'm constantly making sure that my working thread does not get hung up on any of my beadwork. So now I'm ready to step up into the top bead on the right hand side of my horizontal beads. And I'm going to add my beads here, pick up 2. Come down through the next top bead here, the next top cube. And I've dropped both of my beads off of my thread, so let's see how this pans out. And you don't want your thread to get twisted up, so if you see that your thread is twisting, you do want to make sure to straighten that up. So when I pull that through, you can see there that my thread was trying to twist on me. So I'll just straighten it up like that. And now I'm ready to come up through the next cube. And I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. Pick up 2 and come down through the top of the next cube. Position my bugle beads. Come up through this 2nd to last cube. And pick up 2 more. Go ahead and let them drop down. This time I'm going to come down through both of these cubes on this right side end here. So I'm going to come down through both of those cube beads. Position my 2 little bugles so that they do what I want them to. And don't twist. Well, let's see, folks, if I can get this to do it. There we go. So now I need to step up. Let me get this tail thread out of my way. Okay. So now I need to step up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to step up through the 2 cubes, second to last here. And then I'm going to step up through the bugle bead here on the outside edge, just like that. I'm going to take my thumb and make sure that my beads, kind of hold their position here on the end. So this is what I have. Now we're going to come back through and we're going to ladder stitch all of these beads together, and at the same time, when we get to the point, we're going to be adding in the last 4 beads so that we have the same amount of bugle beads here on this top that we do down here on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over because my tail thread is really annoying me at this point. And we're going to start working on securing these bugles together. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down through the second bugle bead over. We're exiting from the one on the outside edge. We're going to come down through the second one. We're going to go back up through the first one, which creates a thread bridge here at the bottom of these 2 bugle beads. Pull that in. We're going to come right back down the second bead. So now we have those 2 beads securely ladder stitched together, or square stitched. Now we need to come up through the third bugle bead. We're going to bring this over to our second bead. So we're coming up from the bottom to the top on that third one. And we need to add our thread bridge here at the top of beads 2 and bead 3. So I'm going to come right back down through my second bugle bead. Then I'm going to come up through the third bead again, and this is going to add a thread bridge at the bottom of bead 2 and 3. Pull it in. You might need to tug on it a little bit to get those beads to snug up next to each other so that they look nice and neat like they do on our bottom row. All right, now we need to come down our 4th bead. We're just going to be repeating this between each bead. We want a thread bridge at the top and the bottom. We have one at the top now, so we'll go back up through bead 3 to create a thread bridge here at the bottoms of 3 and 4. Now we need to get into position, so we'll come back down bead 4. And now we're going to come up through bead 5. And as we come up through bead 5, we're automatically adding a thread bridge there at the bottom of beads 4 and 5. So now we need to put a thread bridge at the top of 4 and 5, so we'll come right back down bead 4. Yeah, my hands are shaking a little bit today, guys. I'm sorry about that, but I have a lot of nerve damage in my arms and hands. Alright, so now I've got my thread bridge at the top. But I need to work with beads 5 and 6, so that means automatically I've got to go back up through bead 5 first. Beads 5 and 6 are connected with a thread bridge at the top, but we need one at the bottom. So we'll come down bead 6. And then go back up bead 5 to put that thread bridge in. We got to come back down bead 6 because we're moving to the right. So here we go. Coming down bead 6. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add these 4 beads. And it's a little fidgety, just so you know up front. But what we're going to do is we're going to add them just like we did when we build our ladder. So we're going to ladder stitch 4 more beads into position. We're coming out of the bottom of bead 6. We're going to pick up a bugle bead and come back through bead 6 from top to bottom. And it's going to be a lot easier if you hold that bead where you want it to sit. So I want it to sit beside of bead 6. So I'm going to hold it down there as I pull into position. Now I'm going to come back up through my new bead. And just for the sake of making this nice and neat and structurally sound, I'm going to come back down, bead 6 one more time. And I'm basically just reinforcing as I add the beads. And then go back up my new bead one more time. And this is just basically reinforcing as you go. And it makes it a lot easier to do. And it makes the beads stay together nicely. So there we go, we have that one added. Now we need to add our next bead. So this one is going to come down. And I'm exiting the top of my new bead this time, so that's bead 7 in essence. So I'll go back through bead 7 from bottom to top. Bring my little bead down where I want to position it. I'm sorry guys, I got out of frame. So I want it to come nicely right beside this other bead. And like I said, this is a little bit fidgety because at this point in time we're not connecting these new beads into our horizontal strip yet. So we're just going to reinforce, come down through the new bead once more, up through that 7th bead we added previously. Back down through this new bead, which it's just become bead 8. And we're ready for this 9th bead. We'll pick it up. Well, there we go. We're coming out of the bottom of this new bead 8. So in order to add the bead, we'll come back through that bead, top to bottom. Drop this bead down next to the other one and pull. We're going to reinforce it. We'll come back through this bead 8 one more time from bottom to top. Well, just a minute. I'm sorry. I lost my place. I am coming out of the bottom of bead 8. I need to go back up through bead 9, which is my new bead. Bottom to top. Now I'm going to reinforce by coming back down bead 8 and back up bead 9. Let me get my needle to the front side of my beadwork. And it is kind of fidgety, guys. I will not lie. But it's not that hard. You just have to like pinch your beads and hold on to your work. Alright, Katrina, you can do it. Promise. Okay. There we go. So now I'm coming back out of the top of bead 9 and I have reinforced. You can see why it's fidgety to work with because this little section is not attached, like I said. Alright, so let's get this 10th one added. We're going to pick this bead up. We're coming out of the top of that 9th bead we just added, so we'll go back through this 9th bead from bottom to top. I am going to position my little bead around here and try to pull it in right next to this 9th bead. So if I have to pull a little trick of pinching it, so be it. I'm coming out of that 9th bead at the top, so I'm going to reinforce this section here. I got to come down through the 10th bead, back up through the 9th bead, and back down through the 10th bead. So I'm going up through my 9th bead one more time. And back down this 10th bead. And now we've got that hard part done. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect this bead to this 11th bead, which is one of the 3 sets of herringbone over here to the right. I'm exiting the bottom of that bead. I'm going to go up, bottom to top, through the next bugle bead in line. Now I've got to create the thread bridge at the top, so I'll come back down this 10th bead. Get my thread bridge created there. And now I am going to sew through the top horizontal bead from right to left. Just like this. So I want to connect this stuff to those horizontal beads. So now I'm coming out over here. I'm going to step up through this bugle bead, if I can get through it. I'm going to step up there. I'm going to go ahead and grab my pliers just in case it's hard to pull through. I'm going to nip that in the bud right now and use my pliers. So now I've got a thread bridge connecting those loose bugle beads we added to these horizontal beads here. The easiest way to move forward, we're going to step backward one bead. We're coming out of that 10th bead, I'm going to step, or the 7th bead, I'm going to step down through this 6th bead, just like that. Then I'm going to come down through that one cube bead right there, the top one. Then I can step over through this horizontal bead. I'm going to go ahead and just step over through the top one. It's a little bit tight. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my pliers and pull that through in a nice smooth motion. And now remember, I have thread bridges between this bead and the 4 we added, so I'm going to come up through the cube and that bead right there on the left hand side of my first herringbone set. Get my tail thread out and pull. So now all of those beads are nice and secured and stitched and connected to the horizontal beads. Not very complicated, just requires some extra stitching. So now all we need to do is to finish connecting these beads up together, just using ladder stitch without adding any beads. We're coming out of the top of this bead. We've already created our thread bridges between that bead and this next bead over, so we're just going to come down through the bottom, top to bottom of that next bead over. And we're ready to create thread bridges here. So as we pass up through that next bugle bead to the right, we're adding the bottom thread bridge. We need one at the top, so we'll just come right back down that previous bead. Just like that. Then we'll move into position by coming right back up through the bead on the right. Now these 2 beads were connected at the top already from our herringbone, but we need a thread bridge here, so we'll come down through the next bead over, step back up through that previous bead to create our little thread bridge. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time today, but it's just one of those days. Alright, so now we're going to come right back down through this bead on the right to get into position to connect our last 2 beads up. We're going to create this thread bridge at the bottom of that bead and our next bead. We're going to come right back down that previous bead to put a thread bridge at the top. And then come right back up from bottom to top through our second to last bead. But before I pull, you see how my thread's trying to pull up a little bit? I can just grab my working thread and pinch it and hold on to it as I pull this thread up. And that will make that pull into place. Last one. We are coming out of the top of our second bead. We need a thread bridge at the bottom of those 2 beads. So come down the bead on the end, go up that second to last bead one more time, and then we'll come down this bead on the end. And we're also going to pass through that cube. And that's going to put us into position for the next step. So here's what I have. this cute little Oriental Venetian blind looking Chinese fan. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create this little accent here at the bottom. And to do that, we're going to pick up 2 cubes, a bugle, and a cube. And our working thread is exiting this cube on the left in between the 2 cubes there at the center. So I'm just going to drop everything down just like that. I'm going to kick up that little last cube bead out of my way, and I'm going to come back down through the bugle and 1 cube. And I'm going to pull. Then I'm going to make sure that that's snugged up to my beadwork and try to position my cube so that it looks nice here on the end. Just basic like fringing. We picked up the 4 beads. We picked up 2 cubes, a bugle, and a cube. We skipped over that cube, came down through this bugle bead and this top cube. Then we're going to pick up 1 more cube bead, and we're going to come through this cube bead on the base right there, directly across from the cube that we started from. And I'm going to bring my thread around to the front so that I'm not crossing over this thing. And when I pull it into position, I have these 2 little cube beads sitting side by side. Actually, I think I did twist it. So let me hold on to it and pull. I have these 2 cube beads sitting side by side. My pass-through beads are this 3rd cube and the bugle. The cube on the end is my accent bead or fringe bead. Now straighten that up just a little bit. And then I've come back through this cube here on the base. And that's where I'm curling exiting between that cube and the bugle bead. Since this is our accent, I don't really see the need to try to reinforce it too much, but I do want to straighten this cube up because I want it to look nice. I'm going to try to get it straight so that it sits on the end, side to side, instead of up and down. It's a little bit fidgety and kind of hard to do. But if you position it, you should be able to get it to do what you want. And that looks better, so I'm kind of satisfied with that. So now I need to get up to the other end of my earring so I can add the bail. And since I'm right here in these cube beads, and I know my bugle beads are getting tight, I'm just going to use this bottom row here, which I'm flipping my work around so it's on the top. I'm just going to use these cubes here to get myself where I want to be. So I'm coming out of the bottom of that cube on the above the last bugle bead. I'm just going to come up the cube next to it. Go down the cube next to it. And I'm not going to pull really hard on this particular positioning because I don't want to pull those beads out of shape. So now I'm coming out of the bottom of the 3rd one. I'm going to go up through the 4th one. Down the 5th one. I accidentally went through the bugle bead. There, down the 5th one. Up this 6th one here, which is right next to my horizontal beads. Flatten it. I'm going to flatten my work out a little bit in case I pulled too tight. So then I just need to come through this horizontal bead, which I know that one was really tight, so I might try this furthest one over. It doesn't really matter. Just pick whichever one you can get through. I'll get through that one easier, so I'll go through this one. It doesn't matter because your thread's going to suck into the intersection and it's not going to be visible. So now I'm over to these beads on this side, and I can just do the same thing. I could go up through the 1st cube, down through the second one. I'm going to flatten my little earring out. Up through the third. Down through the fourth. But now I need to be coming out in between these two beads, and I'm sitting here at the bottom of this bead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to go up through that second to the last one, and I'm going to cross over and go through also the one straight across from it. So that now, as I come up through this last cube, I will be coming out in between those two end cubes just like that. Pull my thread. So there we have our work, and we're in position to add our bail. So in this bail, what I had done was did 2 sets of herringbone stitch, and then I created this loop using 7 of my cube beads. I have since decided and made a design decision that I don't like how long that is. So I'm going to change things up. And I'm going to change the way that this looks. Then I'll go back and fix this earring, obviously. So what I'm going to do is do a little bit of herringbone first. So I am coming out. I'm going to flip it over. I'm coming out between those 2 beads, and I'm exiting the bead on the left. I'm picking up 2 of my beads, and I'm going to come down through that bead across. And then I'm going to make sure my beads don't twist, because I want them to sit and look kind of like herringbone. So be careful that your beads aren't twisting up on you. And take your time and get them to situate the way that you want them to. My thread keeps wanting to twist, but I can straighten that up here in a minute. So now I've got those 2 beads sitting up there, but I need to get back to the other side. I'm coming out of the bottom of this bead on the base. I'm going to just simply do what I did before. I'm going to take my needle, and I'm going to pass through these 2 cubes right here, second to last on the base. Coming across the beadwork. So now I'm coming out of the bottom of the second cube on my base right here. I can just take my needle and go up through the cube, the last cube on the base, right there. Just the 1 cube on my left-hand side. Pull, and then I'm going to step up into this cube bead that I just added in the previous round on the left, because I'm working that way. And I'm going to do another stitch of herringbone, but I don't have to do all this finagling this time, because now I can just come pick up 2 and come down through that bead on the right. Pull my beads into position, and then step up through the 2 beads on the left. Well, Katrina, you can get it, I'm sure. So I'm stepping up through those 2 beads on the left. I'm just going to pick up 3 beads. I'm coming out of this bead on the left. I'm going to take my needle and come down through the bead on the right. And then I'm going to come back up through the bead on the left plus the first one of those 3 I just added. So I'm coming up through 2. I'm going to leave this bead at the top and skip over it. I'm going to come down through that second bead here. And I'm going to put a thread bridge between those 2 beads. Like that. And I'm going to come right back up that top bead on the left. Just like that. So I like that a lot better. So now I just need to end my thread and fish my jump ring through this little bead sitting horizontally here at the top. So I want to end this thread off. So I'm coming out of that top bead on the left. I'm going to go down through all 3 beads here on my right. I'm going to pull this thread forward so that thread sucks in between this bead and the two at the top, just like that. So I don't have exposed thread. Then I'm going to come through my cube bead on the base and try to get through that bugle bead if I can. And I can't, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come down that one cube. So now we just need to weave this thread off so everything stays nice and secure. My bugle beads are really tight, so I'm just going to weave back and forth through these cubes, just like I've been doing. I'm going to come across both of those next two. And come across the next two. Working from left to right here. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I get down a little further. Coming back across the next two. Now to secure that thread, I'm going to backtrack up one bead to my left. Pull my thread in. Come back down the one bead to my right. That's what I call the little loop-de-loop. And then I'm going to come to the center of the next bead. So I'm going to come up one more bead. And I'm going to end this thread. Really close to the beadwork so that it's not visible, just like that. So now I've ended my thread, and I went ahead and ended my tail thread, and I'm going to take these little 22 gauge jump ring and just run it through that top bead. And I'm going to use my pliers here to close my jump ring. And I want to make sure that it's closed nice and tight. I should have added my, went ahead and added my earring wire. Then I could just do that. Like so. So these are little pre-made ear wires. Nothing special about them. Just know that if you're using pre-made ear wires, when you open them, you want to take and open them towards the side instead of bringing the loop around open. That way you don't misshape that particular part of your finding. So I'll take my pliers and move that back to the side just like that. Might need to give it a little pinch to make sure that the metal closes up. Slide the little bead and the coil back down. Like that. In there I have my little ear wire. Well, maybe not like that. I don't quite have it down there. There we go. So now I've added my ear wire. And I like that length better than this extra long. So because I did this at the end, I can just cut that off and stitch in and correct this one to match this one. I just like the way they came out. I think they're really cute. So if you like this video, click like, subscribe to my channel. Guys, I do want to let you know I'm going to be making a lot of changes to the way I do things in the coming year. For right now, the bead mat is still up and running. There's plenty of patterns and things over there that you can check out. I'm going to be reducing the price of some of my patterns here this week. And definitely in October, you can look for some really inexpensive pricing on my patterns. I will let you guys in on more about what's happening with the websites and all that later on as I move towards the end of this year. But for right now, know that you can still head over there for the blog, and you can head over there for patterns and things like that. All right, guys, I just want to thank you for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed this earring project. Feel free to leave me a comment or whatever. And thanks for watching.